29, The Awakening. Original edition, this will be section 1, called Introduction. In the Blue Book, it's called The Closing of the Gap. And in the CE, it's called The Cautious Friendship. Remember, these titles, these were not given to Helen, they were just put in here. And in the CE, this whole chapter is called The Worship of Idols. All right. There is no time, no place, no state where God is absent. In other words, there's no gap. There's nothing to be feared. There is no way in which a gap could be conceived of in the wholeness that is His. The compromise the least and littlest gap would represent in His eternal love is quite impossible, for it would mean His love could harbor just a hint of hate, His gentleness turn sometimes to attack, and His eternal patience sometimes fail. All this do you believe when you perceive a gap between your brother and yourself. All right, so let's stop there. So here is our Father, a gap God. He's the great and terrible God. We don't know if is He going to be pissed today? Is He going to destroy some nation for us today?
He's schizophrenic. He's mysterious. You can't know His ways.
I thought He was love. Well, He is, for the most part.
On occasions.
Every once in a while, He might get a little upset. We might push Him over the edge. No, you can't. Love is love. That's all there is. There's no hints of anything like this.
There's no duality in the Father.
And there's no duality in the correction of the Holy Spirit. You're in one or the other. You're not a little bit innocent or a lot innocent. You're either innocent or guilty. Well, are you guilty? Well, not really. No,
I'm not as guilty as that guy.
Yeah.
See, that's where the levels come into play, and you've used your brother to determine levels of guilt and innocence. You see yourself with the face of innocence looking upon the face of guilt. And the brother's looking back at you the same way, from the face of innocence to the face of guilt. That's what holds you in this concept of a gap.
And we'll argue this course. We'll argue the Bible with God. Now, wait a minute. God, I'm trying to get in this door of heaven, and you're bugging me about this dude I killed back 30 years ago. Let me remind you what you did over there in that Old Testament when you said, go in there and kill all the kids and the babies and all this cattle. Didn't you do that, God? Because you're a lot more guilty with that idea than me just killing that dude, because he really did deserve it, you know.
Oh, my.
And we believe this. Don't think we don't believe this. This is the thought that is in the mind. How could you trust Him then? For He must be deceptive in His love. Be wary then. Let Him not come too close and leave a gap between you and His love through which you can escape if there be need for you to flee. This is interesting. Having the law enforcement background, you've noticed this many times. Automatically, we go in the restaurant for lunch. I know where the door is. I know where the exits are. We tend to sit with my back so I can view everybody, so I know where everybody is. If we can't, I hope there's mirrors because I can pay attention to them in the mirrors. Where does that all come from? From an idea of fear that something's going to happen here.
Right. And see, when this thought of time appeared to happen in the mind, and it was instantly corrected, an aspect of the mind, it didn't accept it and clung to the concept that there's something other than love in my Father. So what did it produce? The concept of fear in that aspect of mind that says I must escape and I must go somewhere to hide from the wrath that's in my Father. And so this is perpetuated throughout this thought system of the fear of God and the wrath of God, the apocalypse, all this disaster and death, and it's all coming at the hand of an angry God.
Sinners in the hands of an angry God. Classic sermon. So we always have the escape valve. That's why you got to look at everything. You got to look at every motive. I'm sorry. I don't tell anybody about this Course in Miracles. I believe it and I teach, but I never let anybody see this Course in Miracles. Why? Because I might slip out of this if I need to. I had to laugh at. We visited an old church. The church you and I were very familiar with the building. It's no longer a church, and we hadn't been up there in many years. And when we got up there, of course, it's all vacant. But the person remembered they were part of the band. He said, remember, I used to park my truck behind the place because there was a door back there. There was an escape back there. And he said, when we were done playing, I would slip out. He called it slip out. In other words, I don't want to hang around for no sermon. I'm going to do my duty here and act like I'm going through the motions, but I got an escape now. Well, don't think that all this thought is involved with a gap to be able to get out of this thing. Again, with the law enforcement, That's what they called it. You got to maintain your gap between the suspect and yourself. It was at least 3 to 4 feet, and it was offset. If you'll ever watch cops, when you see all these videos now, you'll never see them standing right in front of somebody. One will be angled to the left, one will be right, and they keep their distance. They keep the gap. If someone has a knife, there's a 21-foot gap. If that gap gets encroached and they get to 20 feet and 19, they're not waiting for you to get to 5 feet. When you got to 19 feet, the bullets are coming. Because this is a fear thought that is loaded with this thought of gap. It's nothing but a continued form and symbols of this gap thought.
Of separation.
Here is the fear of God, most plainly seen. For love is treacherous to those who fear, since fear and hate can never be apart. No one who hates but is afraid of love, and therefore must he be afraid of God. Certain it is, he knows not what love means. He fears to love and loves to hate. And so he thinks that love is fearful, hate is love. This is the consequence the little gap must bring to those who cherish it and think that it is their salvation and their hope. So there is the results. There is the outcome of the cause and effect of gap thinking. And that is the upside down thinking that hate is love, fear is love, and love is fearful. And it shows up in our culture. It's their salvation.
Yeah, that's the key thing too, because whatever you believe is your salvation, you will cling to what you believe is your salvation. So someone coming in with another thought system is automatically a threat.
The fear of God, the greatest obstacle that peace must flow across, has not yet gone. Remember the obstacles to peace? Fourth one was the fear of God, right? Or was that the first? I don't remember. The rest are past, but this one still remains to block your path. Okay, so it is the last one, the fourth one. And make the way to light seem dark and fearful, perilous and bleak. You had decided that your brother is your enemy. Sometimes a friend, perhaps, provided that your separate interests made your friendship possible a little while. In other words, an ally in some association. But not without a gap perceived between you and him, lest he turn again into an enemy. Let him come close to you, and you jump back. As you approached, did he but instantly withdraw. A cautious friendship, and limited in scope and carefully restricted in amount, became the treaty that you had made with him. Thus, you and your brother but shared a qualified entente in which a clause of separation was a point you both agreed to keep intact. So we made a vow of separation, and now we have this clause of separation and a treaty that we will never be one, we will never be joined, but we can ally together for a time if we have similar interests, if we have similar goals. But all that's constantly changing. We think in these special relationships, oh, they're just like me. That's my twin over there. That's my, what do they call it? My soulmate. We think just alike. Oh, do you? Number one, it's going to be changing what you think, because everybody's moving and a changing. And secondly, you met on a certain wrong. You may be right on that level, on that wrong, and seem like you're in total association. But guess what? They're on their own ladder. The wrong looks like it's on the same ladder, but they're on their own ladder. Who are you?
Ultimately, there's going to be a fight.
It's going to be a fight because there is no true relationship in it. And violating what? This clause of separation was thought to be a breach of treaty, not to be allowed. Now, in the original edition, this is called the closing of the gap. The gap between you and your brother is not one of space between two separate bodies. And this, but seems to be dividing off your separate minds. In other words, the idea that there's a mind trapped in a body and it's separate from myself. It is the symbol of a promise made to meet when you prefer and separate till you and he elect to meet again. In other words, I get to go out of here. I get to go to my house. This idea of a body allows me to choose when I will associate with you and be one with you.
There's a back door to this building.
And then your bodies seem to get in touch and thereby signify a meeting place to join. But always is it possible for you and him to go your separate ways. That was an Elvis song. There's nothing left to do but go our separate ways. Conditional upon the, quote, right to separate, will you and he agree to meet from time to time and keep apart in intervals of separation which do protect you from the, quote, sacrifice of love. The body saves you, for it gets away from total sacrifice and gives to you the time in which to build again your separate self which you truly believe diminishes as you and your brother meet. All right, so even in false joining, there is the threat of true joining, because true joining can occur at any time. So we must protect ourselves. So you will hear this in these special relationships. Hey, I really like spending time with you, but I'm going to need a little time to think about this. I need some me time. So I'm going to need some space. Time and space. What is that? That's what he's talking about right here. And it's in every relationship.
And then when they get away and they get home and they get talking to their buddy, they say, that guy just sucks the life out of me.
I can't stand
I got to recover. So,
I can't stand to even look at him, let alone be around.
It sucks the life out of me.
The body could not separate your mind from your brothers unless you wanted it to be a cause of separation and of distance seen between you and him. Thus do you endow it with a power that lies not within itself. So we're utilizing our own faith and belief that we can be separate through the idea that these are minds trapped in bodies that we don't have to join with, we're not one with, and we can separate any time based on our wish and come back together any time that we would wish as well.
See, that's why time is made up of space and place. Its space are gap, and its place are specifics. See, we hold on to the specificity so that we can maintain a specialness in that special place, and then we maintain the power of a gap, and we use time to separate that. How far is it between the two specifics? That's how long it takes. That's how far away I am.
Once the culture releases this total marriage idea and one mate and all that and how things must be, we come up with a term, like in the United States, called friends with benefits. There are other terms that I will not say. Okay, so what is that? That is, hey, we're going to use one another's bodies in a sexual pleasure situation when one or the other likes, and we agree that we'll put a time and a place and space on this, and we will meet for that purpose. Okay, we're making an agreement here, and I can go anytime I want. Anybody can end it anytime they want.
No commitment.
And when the orgasm comes, then it's how long do I have to hang around after that? Can I just get up and leave? Well, see, nobody does that. It's like, oh, no, I better hang around at least 15 minutes. I mean, it's wackadoo. It's just total insanity. Too funny. And herein lies its power over you. For now, you think that it determines when your brother and you meet and limits your ability to make communion with your brother's mind. So this is where we get into this, we need to get together.
Yeah.
No, we don't. Communion is. It is in the oneness of the mind that we are, the one mind. That doesn't need body. In fact, most times that bodies get together, it is a breakdown of true communion and communication. And now it tells you where to go and how to go there, what is feasible for you to undertake and what you cannot do. That's like what I just was talking about with the friends with benefits. It dictates what its health can tolerate and what will tire it and make it sick. Man, you make me sick. Just looking at you makes me sick. Man, I'm tired. I'm tired of looking at you. That's funny. And its, quote, inherent weaknesses set up the limitations on what you would do and keep your purpose limited and weak. The body will accommodate to this if you would have it so. It will allow but limited indulgences in, quote, love, with intervals of hatred in between. We have a love-hate relationship. And it will take command of when to, quote, love, and when to shrink more safely into fear. It will be sick because you do not know what loving means. And so you must misuse each circumstance and everyone you meet and see in them a purpose not your own. What a lovely world we make. It is not love that asks a sacrifice, but fear demands the sacrifice of love. For in love's presence, fear cannot abide. For hate to be maintained, love must be feared, and only sometimes present, sometimes gone. So, holy relationship seekers, you must understand that. When love shows up, fear's heading for the gap exit, for the back door, because they're not interested in love. That mind is not interested in true love, in true sharing. It's in this realm of separation and minds trapped in bodies. I mean, Jesus is laying it out here.
It's part of the mechanism to keep this whole thing intact, this gap intact, and keep you safe in the gap.
So every circumstance and everyone we meet, we have been misutilizing our whole life, every circumstance, which are all but lessons. And we fear because we see in them a purpose not our own. Does that sound like the ego's best he can do is suspicion? We can't go on together with suspicious minds. I don't know what he's up to. I like this guy or this woman, but I don't know what he's up to. He's probably up to something. I'm going to keep my guard up. I'll keep the gap, and we'll keep the back door open. Or we have the wingman. Or, hey, I'm going on this date with this dude. Call me. It's at 6. Yeah, it's at 7. Call me at 7:15 and just ring it, and then I'll let you know if I'm staying or going. Oh, were you hurt? Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to go. Too funny. For hate to be maintained, love must be feared, and only sometimes present, sometimes gone. Thus is love seen as treacherous, because it seems to come and go uncertainly, and offer no stability to you. You do not see how limited and weak is your allegiance, and how frequently you have demanded that love go away and leave you quietly alone in peace. So you say you're seeking for love, but you're throwing it out at the same time. And then you wonder why. Well, what happened to that relationship? Where's that guy you were with? Oh, that's over. And it's always the other person's fault because we have the face of innocence. The body, innocent of goals, is your excuse for variable goals you hold and force the body to maintain. You do not fear its weakness, but its lack of strength or weakness. Would you know that nothing stands between you and your brother? Would you know there is no gap behind which you can hide? There is a shock that comes to those who learn their Savior is their enemy no more. There is a wariness that is aroused by learning that the body is not real. And there are overtones of seeming fear around the happy message, quote, God is love. Overtones. Yet all that happens when the gap is gone is peace eternal. Nothing more than that and nothing less. Without the fear of God, what could induce you to abandon Him? What toys or trinkets in the gap could serve to hold you back an instant from His love? This is what I call the crap in the gap. Toys and trinkets and goals and seeking for salvation in whatever's coming next, whatever you're chasing. Whatever goal you're chasing, thinking that is your salvation. It's just a toy. It's a trinket. Why would you play with that in a gap when you can have the true peace of God? Would you allow the body to say, quote, no to heaven's calling? Were you not afraid to find a loss of self in finding God? Yet can yourself be lost by being found? In other words, your little self can't be lost when you find your true self, because there is no little self, and you realize you're giving up nothing. You have everything.
And the body is not the self.
The true self is you and the Father. In the Father are all of the brothers, your brothers. We are co-creators of our own creations. And you can never be alone. And you have no one here to seek relationship with. But we have made these special relationships. Every special relationship will become a holy relationship. But it'll still be a special relationship because that's the only part of the dream that is left about your relationship, about our true communion and communication in the heavenly thought of the mind of God. That is our true self. So, the point here is we need to get out of this gap. And I'm sure that we want to get out of the gap. Don't live in the gap. Let's get rid of the crap in the gap. Should you be tempted to play around with the trinkets and everything else, all the crap in the gap,
don't forget to laugh.